Imagine being able to sense the emotions of those around you, like a sixth sense that alerts you to potential dangers. It's a trait we often associate with compassion and kindness. But what if I told you it's not always a gift? In fact, it can be a survival mechanism developed over time as a response to trauma or adversity. Think of it like a firmware update installed to help you navigate the complexities of human relationships. But what cost? As we explore this idea further, you might start to realize that your empathy is not just a natural part of who you are, but also a product of your environment. And this is where it gets interesting, because the line between empathy and exhaustion can become blurred, leading to a state of chronic psychological saturation. So, let's dive deeper into this concept and see where it takes us. Now, pay attention to this part, because it's easy to overlook. We often praise people for being empathetic without considering the underlying reasons for their behavior. It's like assuming someone is a great listener simply because they're quiet, without realizing they might be struggling to find their own voice. Trauma-born empathy is a real phenomenon, where individuals develop hyperattunement as a way to cope with their surroundings. It's not just about being sensitive to the emotions of others, but also about being unable to stop feeling them, like a constant influx of emotional data that can be overwhelming. And this is where the concept of biological drag comes into play, where the weight of other people's emotions can slow you down, making it harder to achieve your own goals. So what does it mean to be empathetic, really? Is it a natural trait or a conditioned response? As we explore this further, you might start to question your own motivations and behaviors. But here's what nobody talks about: the dark side of empathy. When you're constantly tuning into the emotions of others, it can be exhausting, like trying to hold water in your hands, only to see it slip away drop by drop. The pressure to be supportive, to be understanding, can become a burden, especially when you're not taking care of yourself. It's like trying to fly a plane without fuel, hoping to reach your destination, but crashing along the way. And this is where the concept of escape velocity comes into play, where you need to break free from the gravitational pull of other people's emotions to reach a state of sovereignty. So, what does it take to achieve this state? And how can you prioritize your own emotional well-being without feeling guilty or selfish? As we delve deeper into this topic, you might start to realize that your empathy is not just a gift, but also a liability. Imagine being in a room filled with people, each with their own unique energy, like a symphony of emotions playing in the background. It can be overwhelming, like trying to conduct an orchestra without a score, hoping to create harmony, but ending up with chaos. This is what it's like to have trauma-born empathy, where you're constantly scanning the emotional landscape, try to anticipate potential threats, like a radar system on high alert. It's not just about being sensitive. It's about being hyper-vigilant, always on the lookout for danger, like a soldier in a war zone. And this is where the concept of the simulation comes into play, where you start to question the nature of reality and the role you play in it. So, what does it mean to be awake in a world that's still sleeping? And how can you use this awareness to your advantage without getting caught up in the drama of it all? As we explore this idea further, you might start to see the world in a different light and your place in it. Now, let's talk about the concept of Protocol 77 and how it relates to trauma-born empathy. It's like a secret code hidden in plain sight that only reveals itself to those who are willing to look beyond the surface. When you're stuck in a cycle of emotional saturation, it can be hard to see a way out, like being trapped in a maze with no exit. But what if you could find a way to break free, to escape the gravitational pull of other people's emotions, and find your own sense of sovereignty? It's not just about being empathetic. It's about being aware of your own emotional landscape and learning to navigate it like a sailor charting a course through treacherous waters. And this is where the concept of sovereign synthesis comes into play, where you start to integrate your emotions, thoughts, and actions to become a more whole and balanced person. So, what does it take to achieve this state, and how can you start to apply it in your daily life without feeling overwhelmed or uncertain? But here's the thing. Empathy is not just a natural trait. It's also a learned behavior, shaped by our experiences and our environment. It's like a muscle that can be developed over time, but also one that can be strained or even injured if not used properly. When you're constantly using your empathy to navigate the world, it can be exhausting, like running a marathon without training or trying to hold your breath for too long. And this is where the concept of self-care comes into play, where you need to prioritize your own emotional well-being without feeling guilty or selfish. So, what does it mean to take care of yourself in a world that often values selflessness over self-love? And how can you start to prioritize your own needs without feeling like you're abandoning others? As we explore this idea further, you might start to see that empathy is not just a gift, but also a responsibility, one that requires careful attention and nurturing. And this is where it gets dark, because the truth is empathy can be a trap, a never-ending cycle of emotional saturation that can lead to burnout and exhaustion. It's like being stuck in a never-ending loop with no escape or respite. But what if you could find a way to break free, to escape the gravitational pull of other people's emotions and find your own sense of sovereignty? It's not just about being empathetic. It's about being aware of your own emotional landscape and learning to navigate it like a sailor charting a course through treacherous waters. So, what does it take to achieve this state, and how can you start to apply it in your daily life without feeling overwhelmed or uncertain? As we delve deeper into this topic, you might start to realize that empathy is not just a gift, but also a liability, one that requires careful attention and nurturing in order to avoid the trap of emotional saturation. Simulation entirely. Here's what I discovered when I cracked this code. The unconscious labor of continuously scanning every emotional frequency in your environment. It's not sustainable. Your nervous system wasn't designed to be a 24/7 emotional radar dish. Think about it. Your brain is running background processes you're not even aware of, reading microexpressions, processing vocal tonality, calculating threat levels, all while you're trying to have a normal conversation. This isn't empathy. This is survival mode disguised as compassion. And here's the kicker. Most people living with trauma-born empathy have no idea they're even doing it. They think everyone experiences the world this way. They don't realize their emotional bandwidth is being hijacked by an outdated biological protocol. This is exactly why so many highly empathetic people burn out in helping professions. Why they can't understand why everyone else seems so disconnected. why they feel responsible for fixing everyone's emotional state. Your firmware is running a program that says scan, assess, absorb, regulate on repeat. But here's what blew my mind when I first understood this. Pure empathy, the kind that comes from a place of choice rather than compulsion, it has an off switch. Trauma-born empathy doesn't. It's like having a smoke detector that never stops beeping, even when there's no fire. The current understanding of empathy lumps these two completely different phenomena together. And that's why traditional self-care advice fails in paths so spectacularly. Let me show you the difference. Someone with pure empathy walks into a room and can choose to tune into the emotional landscape, or not. They have sovereignty over their attention. Someone with trauma-born empathy, they don't get that choice. The scanning happens automatically. The absorption is involuntary. The responsibility feels inescapable. This is the revelation that changes everything. Recognizing that your empathy might not be a gift, but a survival strategy that's outlived its purpose. And once you see this, you can't unsee it. You start noticing how much of your mental energy goes toward managing other people's emotional states. How exhausted you feel after social interactions. How you've been carrying emotional weight that was never yours to carry in the first place. But here's where sovereign synthesis comes in. Here's your architecture for freedom. Step 1. Recognize that trauma-born empathy is biological drag. It's outdated code that served you once, but now limits your escape velocity. Step 2. Understand that real empathy, conscious empathy, requires boundaries. You can't pour from an empty cup, and you can't regulate from a dysregulated state. Step 3. Implement what I call selective attunement. You learn to consciously choose when to engage your empathetic abilities and when to maintain your energetic boundaries. This isn't about becoming cold or disconnected. This is about becoming sovereign, about choosing compassion from a place of strength rather than compulsion. The moment you understand this distinction, everything shifts. You realize that protecting your emotional bandwidth isn't selfish. It's strategic. You start to see that your value doesn't come from how much you can absorb and heal for others. Your value comes from who you are when you're operating from your authentic center. This is your firmware update. This is how you break free from the empathy trap and step into conscious compassion. If this landed differently than you expected, if something inside you just clicked into place, that's protocol 77 activating. That's your consciousness recognizing a truth it's been waiting to integrate. Drop a comment below if you're ready to explore what sovereign empathy looks like in practice. Because once you see the trap, you can finally walk out of it. Join us at sovereign-synthesis.com to learn more about the sovereign synthesis and how you can apply it in your daily life to achieve a state of emotional balance and well-being.